Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Leon.
And we're going to talk about some video games and technology and other news today.
Yeah, right.
So what's up?
Well, we know that we've been hearing a lot about this bankruptcy business in the news lately. A couple of game companies have gone bust recently.
Ooh, it's ugly out there. It's real ugly.
I know, rough times for everyone. But the most notable ones that we've taken notice of are, well, starting off with Atari, right?
What?
That's right.
You mean the Atari shirt that I'm wearing? This Atari?
Yeah, sort of.
But didn't they go out of business like 30 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, they've changed hands a bunch of times. So really what it means is the company that currently owns the trademark Atari and the name and all the games and all that.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it used to be a company called Infogrames, and it's a French company. They used to make, I remember they used to make games for the Atari 8-bit computer back in the old days, in the early 80s.
Yeah, they made, can't remember, Alone in the Dark, right? That's the only game I can remember.
That's one of their properties, yeah, definitely. But yeah, I mean, you know, they bought Atari way back when, and they ended up changing their own name to Atari. And, you know, as of, I guess, late January, we heard news that the American side of the company was declaring bankruptcy in an effort to break itself off from its French parent company. I guess they had a different idea of which way the business should go compared to the way that they've been going so far, and they wanted to kind of strike out on their own. So it sounded almost like a coup. It almost sounded like, you know, the U.S. company was like kind of doing this as a way to sort of, you know, become independent. But then we heard that you know, the French parent was doing the same, or, you know, was also declaring whatever is bankruptcy in their home territory, in an effort to sort of refinance themselves. So I don't know. I mean, it's a kind of a weird move. But what do you think it all means?
Well, the first news, the initial announcement of them trying to break away from the parent company in France, to do their own thing. So when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe we'll have, you know, the old Atari that we love, and it'll make a big comeback. But then, you know, the French company also went bankrupt, and then Atari is just like, Atari of America just said, you know, we're just going to sell off all our assets and, you know, see what they could recoup in Chapter 11 and everything. So I don't see this as a good thing. Because you don't know where the assets are going. And they're even selling their logo off, which, I mean, that kind of is Atari. Yeah. Unless they have some...
Kind of defines the personality of the company.
They already weren't relevant. And now with, like, the things that didn't make them Atari are going to be gone if this is what is going to happen.
Yeah, right. So Asteroids and Centipede and Tempest and all those other games, can you imagine them just being all owned by different companies and doing their own thing? Or even being rebranded as like a different company? I mean, that's all Atari's legacy. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would have different owners.
I know, right?
But, you know, I mean, what I don't get is what would it mean for Atari to reconstitute itself as an independent company? Like, what are we talking about? We're not talking about getting a new game console out of them, right? It doesn't seem like there's any room in the marketplace for that to happen, right? Yeah. So, you know, what could they possibly do to sort of remind people of what Atari used to mean?
They were saying they wanted to get in the mobile market. That's really what they wanted to concentrate on, since that's where the industry is moving to. Yeah. But, you know, they did release a couple of iPhone games this past year, Breakout, Outlaw. I know they had a casino game they were supposed to bring out this year, which is probably...
a Pong game, right?
Yeah. They have the Pong.
Pong World.
So, yeah, I mean, they were trying, but I don't know if that had anything to do with their demise, or... I don't know. As far as, like, Atari going back to its roots, I mean... Yeah. I just think most people don't even know Atari still existed.
Well, that's the funny thing. Like, I saw a lot of comments of people saying, like, oh, that's so sad. You know, I used to play Atari when I was a kid. I used to play Pac-Man all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and, people didn't know that they had gone out of business a long time ago, or that they had changed hands several times. They were once owned by Hasbro Interactive.
That's right.
You know, they jumped around from place to place for quite a while. And yeah, they don't necessarily know which games Atari produced originally. A lot of games were licensed for home use, so they figured, well, that's an Atari game, even though it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the news reports on different websites, the majority of the comments are like either, oh, they're still around, I didn't even know they're still in business, or oh, I loved playing Space Invaders, or I loved, like you said, I love Pac-Man, and I didn't even see them mention that one Atari game people were talking about. So, and this is just like the average public, not some of the, a core gamer who knows the history and everything else. So, it's not a good thing when all you're known for is a game that you released in 1979.
Hopefully they can sort of put it all back together in some reasonable fashion and kind of come up with like a new plan for the future. But
I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
They're going to go down in history right next to Zenith and like all those other companies of
RCA.
that era. RCA. It was good for its time, but I don't see them ever coming back.
Right.
I know people say, oh, they should just reintroduce Atari, and but it's not. There's not enough market for that. It's never gonna.
It's just nostalgia at this point.
I hate to say it, but it's the end of Atari officially.
Seems like it. Like it. But the other company that made news recently was THQ. THQ's had their share of problems. I don't know if people even know the brand THQ that well. They used to make a lot of like kids show tie-in games. I think they made like a lot of Pixar movie games and Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I mean they started off with I think it may have been Super Nintendo with Rocky and Bullwinkle, the Home Alone series, all those blockbusters.
Yeah.
And so I think they were off to a rocky start because a lot of those licensed movies games were absolutely terrible. And that's when they were called Toy Headquarters.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that's what those initials stand for.
Yeah.
They haven't really pushed that name too much.
No, they dumped that pretty early on. So for me, since that's when I was into gaming, and I always saw that company as kind of the junk brand. That is until they started licensing wrestling games. So they released like the WCW games, the WWF No Mercy, and that was under the Aki developer. And those are probably considered some of the best wrestling games of all time. So that, if there's any one little spot in my heart for THQ, it's that little era where they made really good wrestling games. Not so much anymore, but they did back then.
Right. Yeah, and then most recently they made a couple of odd moves. They had that U-Draw tablet that they put out.
A lot of people say that was the demise.
It was like a big, it's a hardware tablet to hook up to various consoles. Like I think the Wii had one, and not sure what else it came out for. But yeah, I saw them on clearance, stacks of them, in stores not too long ago. But I don't know, they had some decent games. I mean, they had Saints Row most recently, which was considered a pretty competent GTA-style game. A lot of people seem to like. I mean, by the time the third one came out, they seemed to like it a little better than GTA in some cases. Because GTA kind of went off in a slightly different direction, and Saints Row kind of stayed true to the core of what that game was like. So a lot of people seem to like that.
Darksiders
got a lot of press too. Yeah, it's a fan favorite. A lot of people seem to like that game. 1 and 2. They felt it took the best of a lot of different games and jammed them together into one fun package. It had like the gameplay of God of War, but the quest style of Zelda, and they kind of mashed things together into an interesting blend. But yeah, they you know, they seem to have some good stuff in their catalog, but I don't know. I guess it wasn't enough. I always considered them sort of a mid-tier publisher.
Yeah, I mean they brought in Jason Rubin from Naughty Dog.
Yeah,
and they thought, you know, for the last year maybe he could turn things around, and they had, like you said, they had some good licensing. They had South Park game and a couple other things that, you know, if they only maybe had another couple of years, you know, maybe the outcome would be different, but unfortunately not the case. Right. So a couple of other companies fortunately have scooped up a lot of their properties.
Most of them, yeah, they were auctioned off and picked up by a lot of different entities.
So all is not lost.
Yeah, so a lot of those games will continue just under a different banner.
Different
ownership.
I don't know if they're going to continue with what, you know, prototype or beta of the game is done, or they're going to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
Like the WWE games got bought out by 2K.
That's what I heard. And that's
probably one of their biggest franchises. So I highly doubt they're going to use the same engine. They're probably going to start from scratch. So it might be probably another 2 years before you're going to see a game from them for wrestling. But yeah, I mean, the industry's in a tough spot right now. A lot of smaller studios went out. So THQ and Atari are probably the two big ones, though.
Right. Yeah, this is just another symptom of all the consolidation that's going on out there. Actually, the one interesting thing that I did see is that nobody had ended up bidding on the Darksiders property or the studio that produced it, Vigil Games.
I haven't heard anything yet.
The thing that I did see is that that company, the studio was dissolved because nobody ended up buying it. But 3 days later, everybody from the studio, or a lot of people, were rehired by Crytek and formed a new studio called Crytek USA. But that doesn't mean they're going to do any Darksiders again. This is just simply Crytek looking to, you know, grow their team a bit.
So nothing's set in stone. We don't even know if they are going to release any of these games, or they are going to finish what was started. Or I
think the only confirmation that we got is that Crytek also bought the Homefront property, and they were already working on Homefront 2. So that was a good move for them. It lets them continue work on that title and you know, put it out under their own label. But yeah, assumably these other companies didn't buy these properties just to sit on them. They're going to do something with them. I believe.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah, not necessarily.
But 2013 should be an interesting year because we have a lot of companies merging and going under, and then also some new consoles. So there's going to be a lot of turbulence and new... I think this is kind of a little turning point we haven't seen in quite a while for the industry.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more to talk about coming up with that. But perhaps we should take a look back into the past. Yeah,
let me ask you something. 16-bit game systems. Do you have a favorite?
A 16-bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm partial to the Genesis.
Genesis, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to show you something that's going to change the way you look at the 16-bit gaming era.
How can that change? It's been 20 years.
Let me introduce you to Super Akan.
Akan?
Akan. Super Akan.
One of those. Yeah. What? I mean, that looks like a military grade, like Super Famicom to me.
That's what I thought it was. All right, guys. So this is a console from a company called Funtech. It was only available in Taiwan.
Huh.
Which I went there one day by accident.
You just opened the wrong door and you ended up, ended up in Taiwan?
I saw an ad in one of these electronic books that sell like resistors, capacitors, those things. In the back of their book, they had some joysticks, like Atari joysticks, and they had a picture of this console, like in black and white.
Right.
And it didn't really give much detail. It was super cheap, like $17. Came with 2 controllers, and I was like, maybe it's a Famicom. It looked, by the picture, it looked kind of like a Super Famicom.
Yeah, even from this illustration on this booklet here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very reminiscent of the sort of the Super Famicom, like, pencil style drawing that we've seen of the system.
Yeah, and that's why I figured, you know what, let me order it and you know, I'll tinker around. You know, maybe I could play imports. You know, I didn't own a Super Famicom, so I ordered it, and I finally get it and figure out it doesn't work with Super Famicom games. So I had no idea what this was. It wasn't until years later that I realized that other people started acquiring these things.
Right. And
that they made 12 games for this. The games are really hard to track down. I don't have any games for it. So I will show some game footage, but yeah, it's a 16-bit console. It runs on the 68,000 Motorola processor.
So that's what the Genesis used.
Genesis uses it, yeah. So it's got blast processing. Blasting away.
Along with other computers of that era. Pretty popular chip.
It was, right?
Macintosh used it. The Amiga used it. The Atari ST used it. So yeah, it's a pretty widely used processor family. Well, this is pretty interesting to me because, I mean, I thought I knew all of the systems that had come out back then, and I was never aware of this one until, you know, you introduced it to me. And I was shocked to even find that Taiwan produced their own game system. Who knew?
They have their own developing team who made games. Just for them. Like, they actually spend the money to develop this, and
I'm surprised they would even bother.
I know.
I mean, back then, you know, the rivalry between Taiwan and Hong Kong over who could produce the most bootlegs was kind of the war that was raging. So the fact that they you know, even produced an original game system is pretty shocking to me. But it's pretty cool. I think it's an interesting bit of history.
Yeah, and the thing I like about the controllers is it uses the standard, like, Genesis, Atari, Coleco, whatever you call this, plug. It has a turbo switch on the back, so you can cheat.
They really encourage cheating.
When you play track and field, which they don't make on this. And it has the 4 buttons, like it looks like a Super Famicom controller. And the D-pad and the upper and left right buttons. The feel on it's actually a really good controller.
Yeah.
I haven't tested this on any other systems yet, but judging by the feel of it actually feels pretty good. So
probably worth trying. Too bad there's no games available.
Yeah,
or easily available.
There are ROMs online, but I don't know of a flash cart for Super Akan. Super A. Is it Akan or Akan?
We don't know. There's no way to tell.
No.
I guess we'll have to get a hold of their marketing department and find out.
Contact Funtech.
Yeah.
So, this is some of my stuff. Rare piece.
Thanks for sharing.
Not much else to say about it, unfortunately.
But interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
At least to me. And hopefully to others too. So
what else?
I did have a question in mind. I don't know if you're ready for it.
Okay.
Well,
let's hear.
You know, there's a lot of games out there that seem to have a zombie mode. So I'm wondering, can you think of any games that you think would benefit from having a zombie mode? This was inspired to me from all the Call of Duty games that recently had zombie modes introduced into them, which was a little surprising to me because, you know, these are kind of serious military shooter games, and I didn't expect to see something as wacky as a zombie mode in them. But apparently people can't get enough zombies, so let's find out where else you think we need zombies.
I mean, there's so many games that already have zombies in them.
I know. That are all about zombies.
Yeah, so I would have to take just some, like, generic, like, Legend of Zelda, does that count? Like, could that have zombies? But it already has kind of zombies, right?
Does it?
I don't know.
Are there undead?
How about Super Mario?
It would be interesting, right? I mean, a lot of things do try to eat you in the game, so I guess it wouldn't be that far-fetched.
To have, like, this drooling, limping zombie coming at you?
Yeah.
That you have to jump on top of?
I mean, it could lend a whole new atmosphere to the game.
Zombie tennis. Do they remember, like, they used to have Mutant League Hockey, and they should bring back the sports line, but with zombie characters.
The reaction
zombie
times
soccer
might suffer, but who knows? Yeah, you never know. That might get people to play some of the games.
Zombie boxing, and every time you punch, like the head can fly off.
That's a risk. Well, what about Pac-Man?
Well, there's ghosts.
There's ghosts. What if zombies were chasing Pac-Man instead of ghosts? Do you think that might land a new dimension to the game? What if Pac-Man himself was a zombie? He's eating constantly, so
that might work.
It's munching on the ghosts.
The bottom line is they haven't tried it.
I know.
So that's a whole other genre they're missing out on. The zombie market's really big.
Yeah, well, recently I've been playing Portal. Portal 1. I'm a little late to the party, but that would lend a whole other sense of danger and like urgency to the game if zombies were chasing you while you're trying to puzzle out through these rooms. I think that would.
So you don't think this whole zombie thing is played out?
I see new potential everywhere. Zombie Tetris.
Zombie Tetris.
You never know.
I'll have to think about that one.
Well, it's
how about zombie like zombie Atari adventure?
Those dragons are always out to get you.
Yeah, instead of the dragons, zombies.
I could see that. I could see. I don't know how you're gonna render it in so few pixels, but
yeah,
I'm sure there's a way to do it. There's talented pixel artists out there that could make that happen.
Okay.
Well, all right. We'll continue to puzzle that one out.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I don't think we have a clear-cut answer, but we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, I guess we could talk about some other scary stuff that we saw recently.
Yeah, in our Ask Bits segment. Silent Hill Revelations.
Yeah.
Finally got around to seeing it. And just to start off, I was a huge fan of Silent Hill 1. I'm not a huge fan of the game series.
Yeah.
Actually, I only played through part 1 a little bit, and I just dabbled in the others. But I always kind of liked the creepiness of it.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
The movie, I just caught it on, I think, HBO one day when it hit HBO.
The first movie.
And I was like, wow, this is really, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to like it.
Maybe people who don't like it are like sticking to the games too much, like the whole Resident Evil thing, but it's too much. It's not enough like the games. But all right, so I was a big fan of the first one. So the second one, a couple of years later, somewhat different characters. They kept the father.
Right. Harry.
And I don't know. I think that's it. Did
Yeah.
they keep anybody else?
Well, I think his wife came back briefly, right?
Yeah, right. Yes, very briefly.
But it's all about him and his daughter
Yes.
for the most part, and the daughter is based on the character from Silent Hill 3, the lead character there.
Yeah, so they modeled a lot of the characters from 3.
Yeah, elements of that game, and then they kept some of the stuff from the first movie. That's kind of their own thing. But I don't know. My impression of the movie generally was, fairly disappointing. I really wanted to like the movie. I thought it was it looked good from the promos. It looked, the creature effects were very good. Definitely gave you some hint of that creepy atmosphere. But I don't know. They didn't spend much time in the actual town itself. I would have liked to have seen more time spent there. That would have really, kept that atmosphere going, that creepy surroundings and, and mystery of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it was missing a lot of the whole mystery thing of the darkness, and they had the one, I think they only used that effect once with all the paint peeling and when everything changes over. Where in the first movie, you had the horns going, and it was kind of like that eerie feeling when like the monsters would lurk. So I didn't get that feeling this time around.
Right.
But the creatures that they did show were pretty cool. They were not CGI, except for I think the spider mannequin.
Yeah.
Which was definitely my highlight of the whole movie.
Yeah, it looked good.
Spider mannequin was really cool. But the other the costumes, whatever they do, the nurses are always well done. But I mean, if you take out some of that stuff, there's really not a whole lot to it.
Yeah, the script was very,
especially after the way
thin.
the last one ended, and I just felt like, I don't know, they just didn't bridge the two movies that well.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd say it's best avoided unless you're a real super fan and you want to see everything.
Yeah.
Silent Hill.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good view like once, but I don't think I would watch it again like I did the first movie.
Right. Yeah, and we only saw the standard 2D version, even though the movie was heavily promoted as a 3D film. But 3D, I don't know if that...
Yeah, so there's some scenes where like blood is getting thrown at the screen, but we're watching it in 2D, so it doesn't really capture.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say the end part. So after the movie's over, that you're treated just like the first movie. You're treated to like a little kind of animation scene, and so for this movie they chose the spider mannequin boss versus the nurses. Like somehow they got into the same room and they're fighting, and the scenes, I thought that's like the best part of the movie in my mind. I was like, wow, why didn't this make the movie? I don't know, they just saved it to the end. But
yeah, it would have been kind of neat. But
yeah, because you just, you know how they zoom in and they use those MTV-ish camera angles and stuff.
Right.
So if you're going to see anything, I would just forward it to the end just for that part, because I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, so overall for me, kind of a thumbs down.
Yeah, I'm going to say thumbs in the middle. I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was great. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thumbs in the middle.
Okay. Well, maybe we should see what Bit thinks.
Yeah, I mean, this always, ends, right? Oh, Bit has a lot to say.
It's another film based on a video game property, so perhaps Bit might like it. I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay. Bit, Silent Hill, Revelation. What do you think? Was it good?
It's on my side today.
Well, can't win them all.
Well, to be fair, he couldn't give you a thumbs in the middle. If he was going to agree with you, that would be... Well, maybe there's no way to...
You think like his program would just crash if that happened?
It's a third state that he's not capable of representing.
It's either on or off.
Unless you ask him directly. You could ask him if would you give it a thumbs in the middle?
All right, would you give it a thumbs in the middle? Oh, well,
mystery solved.
Okay. All right, so yeah, that's a thumbs down overall. Majority rules. And is that all we have?
That's it for now.
All right, so join us next time, and if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please let us know.
I'd say all that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot. See ya. Bye.